Well, let's go live now to Amman, where we can talk to Soraya Ali, who's Global Media Manager for the Middle East and North Africa at Save the Children. Soraya, what are you seeing and hearing about what's happening in Gaza?
So Gaza is currently facing a humanitarian crisis. As we know, over 8,300 people have been killed, and that includes over 3,700 children in just 3 weeks. I think the sheer scale of that number is unimaginable. We're talking about one child being killed every 10 minutes. There's no safe space in Gaza. We're talking about children's playgrounds, children's schools, children's hospitals under attack right now. We're facing a humanitarian catastrophe, and the only solution to that is a ceasefire.
You've got staff on the ground in Gaza, we assume, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, we have staff.
What are they telling you? What are their experiences and the challenges they're facing in terms of trying to do their job?
It's extremely difficult for our staff, just like ordinary civilians. They've been displaced from their homes. We know that around 1.4 million people have been displaced right now. And our staff are sheltering in facilities in the south of Gaza. And we're talking about facilities that were built for around 2,000 people, currently housing around 23,000 people. So they were just not built for this level of scale or capacity. And we're talking about 23,000 people sharing something like 16 bathrooms. The bathrooms don't have running water. They don't have water to flush the toilets. They're rationing clean drinking water, and they're running out of food, medical supplies, the most basic needs. Our staff are telling us that they're queuing for the bathroom for around 3 hours, and parents are having to make unimaginable decisions while they're rationing food and water alongside their children.
In terms of a ceasefire, of course, right now it looks like it's unlikely, especially given what Israel's Prime Minister is saying currently, Benjamin Netanyahu. So with that in mind, in terms of getting much needed aid into Gaza, what is the outlook? The US is saying that actually more trucks could go through the Rafah border today.
I mean, we have to remain hopeful, but the reality is the amount of aid getting in right now through the Rafah border crossing is nowhere near enough. And just to give some context, even before the recent escalations in violence, Gaza's population, 2.3 million people, around 80% of that population was dependent on humanitarian aid. So we're talking about hundreds of trucks going in and out every single day. And now we're seeing dozens. And we know it's nowhere near enough when hospitals are running out of fuel and people are so desperately rationing the most basic supplies like food and water. But also, nobody can be expected to administer aid and deliver aid under these circumstances. We're hearing some of our staff talking about the possibility of having to deliver aid on the back of their shoulders, because even if they get through the crossing, there's not enough fuel to deliver the aid to those vulnerable people who need it inside of Gaza.
So your staff that are there in Gaza, are you able to get more staff in to help them, relieve them? How are you running your operations? Because this is a conflict that's going to be lasting for a long time. What's your processes in place?
So right now we've got trucks waiting at the Rafah border crossing. We've released a lot of our stock to the UN. I think it's an extremely difficult time for anyone working in the humanitarian aid sector, especially and most of all for our staff in Gaza. Despite being in shelters, despite having been displaced, they're still conducting assessments and keeping in contact with us and letting us know what the situation on the ground is like. But I really need to stress that I don't think anybody can be expected to deliver aid and help vulnerable people if there's a threat to bombardment and if there's a threat to their life. So first and foremost, we need all parties to agree to a ceasefire and also to agree to adhere to the rules of international humanitarian law. And those are the laws that govern fighting and ensure that sacred spaces like hospitals and schools and civilian infrastructure are protected in these conflicts.